Yo, yo, yo. Sorry. I was eating. Welcome back to another video. It's your boy, Corey Man. This is, 1 second. Just let me, load this video up. Then I can get a better, understanding of, sorry, let me try to reset this. Okay. Okay. I'm about to say I thought thought it wasn't loading. I was trying to load it up on, the PC, but it wasn't working. But then I just had to reload the tab. Anyway, this is indie game where you explore real world. I probably simplified the title. I hope that works some way. It's probably gonna be the last video I do for a while. Not the last video today, because I'm gonna try to do 10
Tackle
videos.
unexpected terrain.
10 videos a day for 5 days straight.
The
So,
Subaru Forester with symmetrical all-wheel
I'm ready.
drive. Dog tested, dog approved.
The gaming world and the real world are different places, right? Well, not all of the time. Sometimes in video games, you end up places that, well, exist. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on GameRanks, 10 games where you explore real world places. Starting off with number 10, it's Dead Island 2's Los Angeles. Recently, it seems like games have started to trend away from creating realistic environments based on reality. Games aren't often trying to recreate famous places and landmarks nowadays, so I guess this game had to pick up the slack. Zombie Fiction is the perfect setting to drop you into a well-known location and give you carte blanche to commit some guilt-free mayhem, and Dead Island 2 has that in spades. Set in a zombie-infested version of LA
Dead Island
that I'm
2.
not going to
I've
call
heard about this game,
Hell
but never
A.
played it.
The first few areas take place in mostly fictionalized mansions in the Hollywood Hills, which are pretty accurate to the city in spirit, but none of this is based on anything in particular. Things do get more interesting for our purposes, at least, when you go to the Halperin Hotel, which is an obvious stand-in for the famous Beverly Hills Hotel. The layout is extremely accurate, most of the details are dead on, and what makes it especially interesting is that it isn't some open world thing where you're just looking at it from the outside. It's a fully modeled interior that's incredibly similar to its real-world counterpart. It's impressive, but the game's showpiece location is definitely Venice Beach.
It looks like the beach from GTA 5.
Which has been
Who
meticulously
would have thought you would
recreated
be
down
able
to
to
the most exacting details.
Me too.
Obviously, real-world businesses had to be changed for legal purposes, but almost everything else about this area is spot on, from the road layouts to the boardwalk and beach. It's one of the most realistic city environments I've ever seen. It's
Yeah,
not
that's
very
from
big,
GTA.
it only covers a few blocks, but what is in the game is shockingly real, especially when you compare it to the real Venice Beach. And number 9 is Assassin's Creed Unity's Paris. Historical tourism is a large part of Assassin's Creed. It's the bread and butter, but for my money,
I never
they've
played
never
this
done it
one
as
either.
well as Paris and Unity. Sure, the game's representation of the French Revolution is it's sloppy, but the city is remarkable. It's not perfect, a lot of the city's layout is anachronistic, and it's closer to how most people would know it today after Paris was renovated in the 1800s, but a lot of the city's monuments were recreated with a frankly absurd amount of detail.
J'espère qu'il ne va pas voir ma femme.
Well, if it isn't the best barkeep in town. I'll be ready for you. You need to pay me my take.
I think, was it Liberation? Or the third game? It was my favorite. Why is that guy dressed like the Flash?
There is no better place
He
to
must
show
be
that
one of those
off than in
special
Notre
guys
Dame
you can take
Cathedral,
out.
which Ubisoft claims is a one-to-one recreation. That is to say, everything was recreated with nearly perfect accuracy, and it shows. Later games may look better than Unity, but the architectural design is the best the series ever got. Apparently, Ubisoft had a team just to work on the cathedral and spent 2 years rebuilding it, and that was it. That's all they did. It's not just exteriors that look this good either. The interior interiors of a lot of places in the game, where a lot of assassinations,
I
quite
bet
frankly, take
if
place.
you
They're
get
lush with detail
paid
as
to
well.
just work
Pretty
on
much
one
every
thing,
Paris
shouldn't be that
landmark
hard.
from the time is here and accounted
It's
for.
when you got
with the
multiple
old
things, you
prison
gotta work
of the
on.
Bastille, the
That's hard.
Pantheon, the Luxembourg Palace, and a lot more. They're all here, and they
You got
look amazing. And just as a little shout out, Unity's follow-up,
Like, you probably
Syndicate,
got, like,
lets
3
explore a
months
lot more
to work on
real-world
one,
locations in London
section.
rather than Paris.
You gotta move
And
on
it's
to
a
the
game
other.
that's also been highly praised for its accuracy. For me, though, Unity's just a little more impressive. And number 8 is Watch Dogs 2's San Francisco, set in a condensed,
how they
slightly
made
futuristic
multiple
version
games.
of San Francisco and Silicon Valley.
'Cause
Watch
they-
Dogs
they
2
not easy to
doesn't
make, bro.
just have one of the
Especially
most
if
immersive
you,
cities out there, but it's
dropping
also
them
one
yearly.
of Ubisoft's best
Or every
open
other
world
year,
games.
like,
What's so
I
great
don't-
about this game isn't that it does a great job recreating the city, it's that it puts the extra work into making it feel like it's alive.
think somebody's
Sure,
scared.
famous spots like the
They ain't
Palace
here
of
for
the
me,
Fine
though.
Arts, the Golden Gate Bridge, and the Court Tower, they're here and they look really
Let 'em
accurate,
wait.
but the game also populates the city with street performers, tourists, and even seals to give it this authentic vibe. It's not just a bunch of static structures. The city just feels like a living,
Yeah, come on,
breathing
man.
place. There's people everywhere, and the traffic's not as bad as in real life. That'll be a running theme of this list, by the way, but still, it's good. A lot of places you explore in this game are entirely fictional, but a lot of the businesses are at least based off real-life corporate offices and campuses.
Check out these deals of the week at Walgreens. Save on essentials and more only at Walgreens.
I don't know.
No, for real? Oh, man. Wait.
Mm.
My favorite being Noodle, the game's stand-in for
This
Google,
was the
which
game,
is
I
as
think
faux
this is-
whimsical as the real Googleplex, actually.
This
And
is-
yes, that's what the place is really called in real life.
This is,
Googleplex.
Watch Dogs
And number
2.
7 is Kingdom Come Deliverance, Sassaw.
Yeah,
I've played this
Watch
game
Dogs
for
2.
years, but only now did I realize this game isn't just trying to be authentic in its recreation of medieval life. They put a ton of effort into making the map and places you visit also
I don't like
extremely
this.
accurate. Not shocking, but yeah. I just assumed the entire region, which was set in the Kingdom of Bohemia in the early
It's
15th
like one-
century,
it feels
was
like one of those
mostly
free-to-play
made up, but
witchcraft
it's not.
games.
The region of Sassaw and Rattay they're real, completely real. They're made of
Those
castles
were
and
never my
ruins that are
favorite.
still standing and look really similar to how they're depicted in the game. Rattay is especially accurate. The entire castle, hillside, main tower, it's all nearly identical. And it's an extremely
never get
impressive
into those
level of
role-playing
detail
games.
for what is otherwise
Like
a game
them,
made on a
PC
relatively
games
low budget.
playing-
It's not just the castle.
I don't see how
either that's
people get into
realistic.
that.
The entire surrounding
Like, bro, the
countryside
graphics
is
be
also
bad. You
recreated
playing with
and
them little
looks
small
impressively
characters.
similar.
And
That's
what-
not the
what is
only
even the
monument
story
still
arc
standing in
behind
the
it?
area. The local monastery is also still around, and it looks like an almost 1-1 recreation as well.
League of Legends. People play that? What is it?
Kingdom Come gets some flack for how it chooses to present history, but the landscapes
dang.
and landmarks, they're really,
Great
really
Shadow
good at standing up to
Legends.
scrutiny.
That's what it is.
And number
People
6
play
is
that.
Marvel's Spider-Man's New York City. A lot has been said about Insomniac's take
just
on
that
Spider-Man,
game.
and it's
Just that
sometimes
game.
nearly photorealistic version of New York City. And I'm gonna say more. Set entirely on the island of Manhattan, which is just a small portion of the whole city, the developers still shrunk down the island by a few blocks, and they were forced to make some changes because of licensing issues as well. That's the reason the Chrysler Building isn't in the game, for example. The new
I was wondering why
owners
they
wanted
ain't put the
devs to pay
Chrysler
up for
Building
the
in there.
privilege of
I don't think
including
they
the
put it
building
in the new game
which
either.
Insomniac was like, no, what? We're not doing that. And good for them. Like, it's literally just like advertising for the most part. You get your building in the thing, and that helps you. You don't really help that. There's a few buildings like that, and some generic structures in between that don't match up with the real New York, but for the most part, everything's really detailed.
Why does
and
this look
very
like,
accurate.
Spider-Man
Grand Central
2?
Station, perfect example of the detail on display here. The entire outside of the station is fully modeled as well as the interior, and it's impressive impressively accurate. The crowds probably would be a lot bigger, to be fair, but also that might be a little hectic and irritating to exist in Marvel's game, because it sure is in real life. Also, Spider-Man doesn't have to like deal with cars at all, so they're just like, hey, you know what? Let's do the traffic for real. And man, they did. If you try to drive around in New York, it's a nightmare, just like it would be in this game. You don't have to drive around at all in this game, thankfully. So they're just like, yeah, enjoy New York's wall-to-wall gridlock.
I always wonder why there was like people in New York without cars. Like, there's a lot of people in New York don't even got cars. They're just there.
At this point, so
And
many
they
open
walk
world games
everywhere.
have been set in New York City or an analog for it, but Spider-Man probably is the only one that's accurately
Some
modeled
people
for
be
traffic.
parking on streets.
At number 5, The Last of Us Part 2's Seattle. There is something wrong with the people at Naughty Dog. That's the only explanation for all the insane little details in this game and pretty much every other game they do. Seriously, look up some of this stuff. It's a little unnerving. Like, chill out, guys. Is all this stuff necessary? Apparently it is, because that's how we got this incredibly detailed and specific recreation of Seattle. Most of the game is spent in this city, so, I mean, you see a lot of it, and you'd be shocked to see just how much stuff in the game is nearly identical to how it appears in real life. I mean, outside of being set after the apocalypse, of course. If you're a Seattle resident, a lot of stuff in this game is going to stick out to you, like the Sorrento Hotel near the start of the game. It's eerily accurate both inside and outside. Most of the downtown area and the buildings, it's all very similar to its real-world counterparts. Later in the game, you go to Lumen Field, the football stadium, and if you look past all the stuff built on top of it, everything else is about the way the stadium is in real life. It's crazy accurate. The Seattle Aquarium is where they just lost it. The place is huge, meticulously detailed, and you end up exploring most of it. I could go on and talk about many locations that show up in the game, but I'd just basically be describing it. Everywhere you go seems to be based on something. It's hell-bent in a way that
You
few
got that
developers
JD
are.
McDonough.
And number 4
Still
is
something from a
Ghostwire
dead man?
Tokyo's Shibuya. For once, there's a game set in the post-apocalypse or in some
Ghostwire. I
otherwise
think I remember
ruined version
seeing
of
this
a
game, but
famous
not playing
modern
it.
city. Well, you swap out ghosts with zombies, and you get Ghostwire
Maybe I
Tokyo.
didn't see
It
this.
does make a difference, though. Instead
I
of the
think the
blood and
last
guts
one I
everyone
saw
like your
was like
standard
Trial
zombie game,
Run.
Ghostwire's version of Tokyo is relatively
like,
unharmed and almost
jumping
uncanny
off
with how
buildings,
realistic
like,
it looks at
being
times.
maximally
Mainly
stuff.
set around the real-life ward of Shibuya, the famous commerce center of the city. You've seen it in Jet Set Radio. You've seen it in various other Tokyo games. It starts off in the infamous Shibuya Scramble, one of the most chaotic intersections in the entire city. That's pretty much an iconic representation of life in Tokyo. You've seen it, period. Rather than being a one-to-one perfect recreation of the entire district, Ghostwire is a little more focused on getting the details right rather than the big picture. Things like signage, street signs, phones, it's all perfectly recreated. Even if the actual city layout tends to deviate from reality a bit, buildings like the Central Hospital, the Metro Station, they're nearly identical to their real-life counterparts. Both the inside and outside, might I add. They don't always perfectly match up, but the details are crazy.
I
And
always thought
frankly,
that
we are seeing rights issues
the
come
guy-
up a
the,
fair amount here,
the
and that could be part of it
convenience
as well.
station-
But Ghostwire's version of Tokyo
gas
is
station
carefully researched
in the,
and realistic
Tokyo
above
game.
and beyond
It
basically
always
anything
seemed weird.
else out
Like,
there.
I mean, not weird, but they got like the it's all white inside. It's like a CVS pharmacy.
And number 3 is L.A. Noir, set in post-World War II
Noir.
L.A. This game doesn't just
I
accurately
played this
recreate
one.
the city from that time. They've gone through and
I think it was
recreated
the late-
everything
the remastered
down to the
version.
smallest detail. What makes L.A. Noir stand out even today,
I played
where
it
its
on,
once cutting-edge graphics come off as
I got it on
weird
here
and kind of
on
ugly,
my,
is
PC.
this attention to detail. The insides
not
of
the best
houses
to
and
play,
apartments
though,
have been
because,
created using reference photos from the time, but it doesn't stop there. Every random
shit
thing
ain't that
from
bad.
radios to
As
newspapers,
y'all
it's all been
sometimes can
carefully sourced and remade. Things that you'd never think of, like government documents and how ledgers were done at the time. It's all realistically recreated. If you're the type of person who just finds how people used
Hey,
to do things
Freddy.
interesting, if you really care about all the procedural stuff,
Louis,
L.A. Noir
how you
is
been?
one of the most fascinating games of all time. The little details are impressive, but the city itself is heavily researched as well. They even used old public works documents to accurately recreate the layout of the roads. One thing I really appreciate about this game is how many
You
interiors you go
McFibly.
into. Like famous landmarks like Union Station, you actually can go in them, and the interiors are just as period accurate as the exterior. The visuals, I mean, they're a little flat and washed out now, but there's clearly a ton of attention paid to the accuracy in
Mafia
LA
games,
Noir, and that's what made it one of the most interesting open worlds to explore. Even if actually getting around can be a bit of a pain in the ass, I mean, it's LA.
An hour later, she shows. Hair still smoking, clothes smoldering, smelling like a brush fire.
At number 2 is The Division 2. Massive Entertainment, the Ubisoft developer in charge of this one, gave themselves a seemingly impossible goal of creating a one-to-one representation of the nation's capital. Now, it is post-apocalyptic, and a lot of buildings
This
had to
looks
be
like
changed
Days
for
Gone.
licensing and security reasons, blah, 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 but look at the results. This game actually only takes place in a small part of the capital. It doesn't even really cover a big area. It's a division.
I played
of
Days
DC,
Gone, the
but
first
man,
one.
is that division
It was
ever
nice.
detailed.
It was just
Everything
a
from
lot.
the shape of the
With the
roads,
zombies
walking
coming out
paths,
of nowhere,
guardrails,
just-
it's all extremely accurate to real life.
Packing.
Buildings were, of course, carefully
Plus, getting to the
created.
base,
You got the
they-
White
they
House, the
didn't seem
Capitol
like they
building,
liked
the
it.
Lincoln Memorial, the reflecting pool. All these places aren't just highly detailed.
Plus, you got
They're
to
also
stay nearby, or else
accurately
you can get
placed,
killed,
so
'cause they
it's
just-
really easy to take
come
a
out of
reference
nowhere.
photo
They
and
can hear you
match it up
coming.
to the place in the game world. It's
They can hear
pretty
you
much
coming.
one-to-one. It's
Yeah, no,
almost there.
no, I
You
didn't
know,
like that.
outside of the apocalypse part. Apparently, the devs conducted extensive research trips to gather information about the city, and it really shows in the final product. It's an easy breeze past all this stuff when you're actually playing it, but the
When you're
detail you
actually
get in this
playing
is
it.
just insane.
They
If you
know
ever
what
wanted
they
to check out
talk
Washington,
about.
D.C., but don't want to deal with the really confusing roads, and as somebody
The
who's been
really
there quite a few
confusing
times,
roads.
I can attest it's lunacy. Just play the game. Play Division 2. At number 1 is Flight
Oh, this was
Simulator
Division.
2020. Your hometown. Most games with real-world locations give you the opportunity to explore famous cities, and yeah, Flight Simulator 2020 also has that. There's one thing this game has that nothing else does, though, and it's your hometown. When you pop into a video game, you're usually jetting off to picturesque places and huge cities that most people know and would be very interested in seeing, but sometimes you just want to go somewhere familiar, and for most people, that's not going to happen in a game. I don't think Grand Theft Auto's next adventure is going to be set in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, or like Laredo, Texas, or Denver. Denver's even kind of big, and I don't see there ever being a Denver game, a real one anyway. Most places, they just don't get a chance to get spotlighted in a game, except for in Flight Simulator, where the whole world it's right there. It's not going to be as detailed as London or Hong Kong or any of the places that, of course, they're going to spend time on, but it's pretty likely that there's map data where you live, and it's probably pretty accurate. It might be kind of blurry and ugly, and the roads might not be completely correct because there might be construction or something got updated or blah, blah, blah. But the overall layout is the same as in real life. So you might actually be able to follow the roads and find your old school, maybe even your old house. In other parts of the world where
I ain't gonna
maps aren't
lie, I
very
would
good
like
about
to do
scanning,
this,
the
bro.
map
I
data
can
gets
show
a lot
y'all
more
so
spotty,
much.
unfortunately. Still, this is a game that literally has the whole world. So there's always something to see, even if it's only from 13,000 feet up that it looks like something. It's not always the best looking game, but if you want real, it doesn't get more realistic than Flight Simulator 2020. And that's all for today. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like.
Bruh,
If
how
you're not
much is
subscribed,
Flight
there's a great
Simulator 2020? Let's look on the PlayStation app, y'all. What we looking on here right now, PlayStation app. I see it. Who's right next to PayPal? Like, where else would it be? Okay, I got a chat. Oh, it's from that group chat I'm in. I got this. Somebody added me to a group chat. I just muted the whole group chat, so I don't hear nothing. I did that for most of them though. Like, I think he said it's called Flight Simulator. I wonder if that a PS4 game or is it just they got something called Universal Flight Simulator, Easy Flight Simulator, Island Flight Simulator, Coastline Flight Simulator. And then all these are add-ons. Let's just see what this Okay, let's see what this Easy Flight Simulator is. I don't think it's the universal. Let's look at this Easy Flight Simulator. Nah, it's not the one either. I don't think any of these are it. Pretty sure that Flight Simulator they had was like a PC game. But anyways, thank y'all for joining in. I'm a stream later on. I did my 5 already, so we got 5 more. We'll probably start that around 5 o'clock. It's 3:44 right now, so that